So let me ask you something. Have you ever stopped and wondered why it feels like you're always chasing money? Even when you're working harder than ever. You get paid. A few numbers appear in your bank account, and a few days later, they're gone. Rent, food, bills, maybe that coffee you definitely didn't need. And before you know it, you're already waiting for the next payday. It's almost like someone designed a game where you're always running, but never quite reaching the finish line. And here's the crazy part. Most people spend their entire lives inside this game, without ever learning the rules. Think about it. School teaches you algebra, history, chemistry, but somehow, nobody ever explains the one thing you'll use every single day for the rest of your life. Money. What actually gives it value? Why do prices keep rising? Why do banks seem to win no matter what happens? And why do the rich keep getting richer, while everyone else is simply told to save more? None of it is magic. None of it is luck. It's a system. And once you understand that system, you never look at money the same way again. So over the next several minutes, we're going to break down the entire financial world into plain, simple English. No jargon. No boring lectures. Just the rules of the game almost nobody teaches. Because once you know the rules, you can finally start playing to win. Let's start with something everyone loves to hate. Taxes. Picture this. You've just survived an exhausting month. Early mornings. Late nights. And then, finally, that beautiful message arrives. Your salary has been deposited. You open your banking app. And immediately, something feels wrong. Wait, I thought I earned $2,000. Why does it say $1,400? Who took the rest? Welcome to taxes. And honestly, they might be the single most misunderstood part of money. Most people think taxes are just the government reaching into your pocket and taking your cash. But that's only half the story. Here's a better way to see it. Think of an entire country like one giant apartment building. Everyone living inside shares certain things. The roads, the hospitals, the police, the firefighters, the schools, the street lights, the parks, and someone has to pay for all of it. Taxes are basically the monthly maintenance fee for an entire country. Without them, there are no roads to drive on, no firefighters when your kitchen catches fire, no public schools, no airports, no safety at all. Civilization itself comes with a price tag. Now, whether your taxes are actually spent wisely, that's a very different conversation. And here's where it gets interesting. The government doesn't just tax you once. It taxes you almost every time money changes hands. You earn money? Income tax. You buy something? Sales tax. You invest and it grows? Capital gains tax. You own a home? Property tax. Even after you've already paid tax on your income, you often pay tax again the moment you spend what's left. Money gets taxed. It moves. It gets taxed again. It moves. Taxed again. And once you notice this pattern, you honestly can't unsee it. Then there are two deductions almost everyone spots on their payslip: Social Security and healthcare. Social Security is basically forced retirement savings, the system quietly saying, we don't trust everyone to save enough on their own, so we'll do it for you. And whether that's a good thing depends entirely on who you ask. So your paycheck finally survives taxes. It lands safely in your bank account. You breathe a sigh of relief. At least my money is safe now. Well, about that. Let me ask you something. If you deposited $1,000 into your bank today, where do you think that money actually is right now? Most people picture a giant vault. Rows of steel shelves. Stacks of cash. Security cameras. Maybe a guard with a shotgun. Movies have convinced us that's how banks work. But in reality, your money probably isn't sitting in a vault at all. In fact, there's a very good chance it's already been lent to someone else. Think about it. Imagine 10 people each deposit $1,000. The bank now holds $10,000. Most of us assume the bank simply guards that money until everyone comes back for it. But if banks actually did that, they'd never make a single cent. Because banks aren't storage companies. They're businesses. And every business has one goal: profit. So instead of letting your money sit and collect dust, they put it to work. And here's the clever part. Banks know something about human behavior. Almost nobody withdraws all of their money at once. One person buys groceries. Another pays rent. Someone sends a transfer. But very few people ever walk in and say, "I'd like every single dollar I own, please." So banks keep only a fraction available and lend out the rest. Now here's how they get rich doing it. Let's say you deposited $1,000. The bank thanks you politely. Then it lends that very same money to someone else at 6% interest. Meanwhile, it pays you maybe 1%. So you took almost all of the risk, and they collected almost all of the reward. That's the entire business model. The bank is a middleman. It connects people who have money with people who need money and quietly takes a cut in between, which is exactly why banks love it when you leave your cash sitting still in your account. Idle money for you is working money for them. But now you might be thinking, hold on. What happens if everyone shows up tomorrow and asks for their money back at the same time? Excellent question, because that has happened before. Picture hundreds of people crowded outside a bank. The line stretches down the block. Everyone is frightened. Everyone wants their savings right now. This is called a bank run, and it's every bank's worst nightmare. Because if everyone demands their cash at once, the bank simply doesn't have enough on hand. Not because the money vanished, but because it's tied up in loans. And history keeps showing us the same thing. Panic spreads faster than facts. Once people believe a bank is in trouble, the rush to withdraw can actually become the very reason it fails. So if banks are this fragile, why does anyone trust them at all? Simple. Because they solve a much bigger problem. Imagine being paid entirely in cash. Every month. Carrying thousands of dollars everywhere you go. Lose your wallet? Gone. House catches fire? Gone. Someone steals it? Gone. Banks make storing and moving money effortless. You can pay rent, buy groceries, and send money across the planet in seconds. And in many countries, the government even insures your deposits up to a certain amount, meaning that even if the bank collapses, your savings are still protected within those limits. That safety net is one of the biggest reasons we keep trusting the whole system. But banks don't perform miracles. Their entire world rests on one small, powerful word: interest. So we know what banks do. They take money from people who have it and lend it to people who need it. But here's the real question. Why would anyone lend money in the first place? Think about it. If I lend you $1,000 today, I can't spend that money myself. I can't invest it. I can't use it for anything. I'm giving up the power to use my own money. So naturally, I'd want something in return. That something is interest. And here's the beautiful way to understand it. Interest is simply the price of time. You're not really paying for the money. You're paying for the privilege of using someone else's money before you've earned your own. Now let's talk about one of the most expensive pieces of plastic ever invented: the credit card. Used the right way, it's genuinely useful. Used carelessly, it can quietly become one of the biggest financial traps you'll ever fall into. Say you buy a new phone for $1,000. You tell yourself, "I'll pay it off next month." But next month arrives, and you only make the minimum payment. The rest stays on the card. And now, interest starts to grow. The following month, you're not just paying interest on the phone. You're paying interest on last month's interest. And that, right there, is where things quietly become dangerous. There's a reason investors light up when they hear the words compound interest. And borrowers usually don't. Because compound interest works like a snowball rolling down a mountain. At first, it barely grows. You can hardly see it move. But the longer it rolls, the bigger it becomes. And eventually, it's almost impossible to stop. Here's the wild part. The exact same force can either build your wealth or completely destroy it. It all depends on one thing: which side of it you're standing on. If you're the investor, it's the greatest ally you'll ever have. If you're the borrower drowning in high-interest debt, it's a force quietly working against you every single day. Let me prove it with two people. Alex starts investing $200 a month at age 25. Jamie waits and starts at 35. Both invest the exact same amount each month. Both earn the exact same return. So who ends up with more money? Alex. And not by a little, by a huge margin. Not because Alex invested more, Not because Alex was smarter, simply because Alex gave compound interest the one thing it craves most: time. This is the real secret wealthy investors obsess over. They're not chasing higher returns. They're buying more years. Because in the world of compounding, time isn't just money. Time is the money multiplier. Here's my favorite way to picture it. Imagine hiring an employee who never sleeps, never asks for a raise, never takes a vacation, works every single second of every single day, and instead of you paying them, they pay you. That's exactly what invested money becomes. Every dollar you invest starts working. Then the money it earns starts working too. And eventually, your money has employees, and those employees go out and hire even more employees. It's one of the only situations in life where doing absolutely nothing can be incredibly productive. But never forget the other side. Compound interest doesn't care who you are. If you're investing, it's your best employee. If you're carrying expensive debt, it's your most patient enemy. So here's the golden rule that can change your financial life. If interest is working against you, kill it as fast as you can. If it's working for you, be patient. Because compounding rewards one thing above all else: consistency. But now we hit another problem. Let's say you finally start saving. You build up $10,000. You avoid debt. You do everything right. You put the cash safely in a drawer. 10 years later, it's still $10,000. So you've lost nothing, right? Not exactly. Because while your money was sitting perfectly still, something else wasn't. Prices. Think back to being a kid, walking into a store with $10 and coming out with snacks, a drink, and change to spare. Today, that same $10 barely covers lunch. The number on the bill never changed, but your money quietly became less valuable. And that is inflation, one of the quietest thieves in the entire world. The scary thing about inflation is that it never feels like theft. Nobody reaches into your wallet. Nobody empties your account. Instead, everything around you just slowly becomes more expensive. Food, gas, rent, coffee, flights, almost everything. Which means even if your salary stays exactly the same, your purchasing power shrinks. Imagine getting a 5% raise. Sounds great. Until you realize prices went up 7%. On paper, you're earning more. But in reality, you're poorer than you were last year. That's the invisible pay cut inflation quietly hands to millions of people, and most of them never even notice it happening. So why do prices actually go up? There isn't just one reason. Sometimes there's simply too much money chasing too few products. Imagine only 100 brand new gaming consoles exist, but suddenly 1,000 people want one. The store doesn't lower the price. It raises it because someone will happily pay more. That's supply and demand. Now imagine the factory can't get computer chips. Production slows. Even fewer consoles exist, while demand stays sky high. Prices climb again. And then there's the explanation you hear everywhere online. The government just printed too much money. It's an oversimplification, but there's truth in it. Think of money like concert tickets. 1,000 tickets for 1,000 seats works perfectly, but print another 1,000 tickets without adding any seats, and each ticket becomes worth less. Too much money, chasing the same amount of stuff. But companies have another sneaky trick. Sometimes they don't raise the price at all. Instead, they shrink the product. Same bag, same colorful packaging, same price, but you open it up, and it feels like someone ate half your chips before you even got there. Congratulations. You've just met shrinkflation. It's inflation wearing a clever disguise. Now, you might ask, why don't companies just pay everyone more? Because imagine every business doubled salaries tomorrow. Sounds amazing until those businesses realize their costs just exploded. So they raise prices. Now everything costs more. So workers demand another raise. So prices rise again. Economists call this the wage price spiral, and it's one reason inflation becomes so hard to stop once it gets rolling. So how do governments actually fight inflation? Usually, by making money more expensive. That sounds backwards, but here's what it means. Remember interest rates? When central banks raise them, borrowing gets more expensive. Car loans, mortgages, business loans, credit cards. So people borrow less. Businesses invest less. Consumers spend less. Demand cools down. And prices finally slow. It's like easing your foot off the gas pedal before the engine overheats. But there's a catch. If you slow the economy down too much, something else creeps in. Businesses stop expanding. Hiring freezes. People spend less. Companies earn less. Layoffs begin. And slowly, the economy starts moving backwards. That is a recession. If inflation is the economy overheating, a recession is what happens when it gets too cold. The word recession sounds terrifying, and sometimes it truly is. But it's also one of the most misunderstood words in all of economics. Most people imagine a recession as one dramatic event, everything normal one day, total collapse the next. Reality is rarely like that. A recession creeps in, quietly. It usually starts small. People get a little more cautious. They spend a little less. Businesses notice sales slowing, so they stop hiring. Maybe they cancel expansion. Maybe they lay off a few workers. And those workers now spend less too, which hurts other businesses. And just like that, one domino knocks over the next. A recession isn't one big problem. It's thousands of small problems, quietly feeding each other. There's rarely one single cause. Sometimes interest rates stay high too long. Sometimes a housing bubble bursts. Sometimes a pandemic shuts down entire industries. Sometimes markets simply panic. Every recession has its own story. But they all share one thing. Confidence disappears. People stop believing tomorrow will be better than today. And once confidence vanishes, so does spending. And modern economies run on spending. Here's the easiest way to picture it. Imagine the economy as a giant party. At first, the music is loud, people are dancing, food keeps arriving, nobody wants to leave. Then someone notices the drinks running low. The music gets quieter. People stop dancing. Small groups start heading home. And before long, the room is half empty. That's a recession. Not because the party exploded, but because the energy slowly drained away. Now imagine you walk into a bank and ask for a loan. The banker has never met you, has no idea if you're responsible or reckless. So how do they decide? Simple. They look at one number. Your credit score. Think of it as your financial reputation. Not your personality. Not your intelligence. Not even how much money you have. Just one question. If we lend this person money, what are the chances we get it back? That's all a credit score really is. A trust score. And people often think having a credit card hurts it. Not exactly. Using credit isn't the problem. Using it irresponsibly is. Do you pay on time? How much of your limit do you use? How long have your accounts been open? Every financial decision quietly paints a picture of you, and lenders study that picture before handing over thousands of dollars. But credit scores only exist because money exists, which raises an even bigger question. What is money really? Take out a dollar bill, or a 20, or 100, and ask yourself something. Why is this piece of paper valuable? It's not made of gold. You can't eat it. It won't keep you warm. By itself, it's just paper. The only reason it has any value at all is because billions of people agree that it does. Money is one of the largest shared beliefs in human history. If tomorrow everyone simply stopped believing in it, it would become exactly what it physically is. Paper. Thousands of years ago, people traded directly chickens for wheat. It worked until you didn't want chickens or I didn't need wheat. Money solved that. It became the one thing everyone agreed to accept, and because everyone accepted it, trade exploded, cities grew, and civilizations expanded. And this brings us to a fascinating question people love to argue about. What's real money? Cash, gold, Bitcoin? The truth is, they all depend on the exact same thing. Trust. Gold has value because humans have prized it for thousands of years. Dollars have value because governments back them and society accepts them. Bitcoin has value because millions of people believe it does. Different systems. Same foundation. Belief. But here's the thing we already learned. Simply holding money isn't enough, because inflation quietly erodes it year after year. So if saving alone isn't the answer, what do wealthy people do instead? They invest. And that leads us to one of the biggest financial truths in the world. Rich people don't just work for money. They make money work for them. Investing is simply giving your money a job. You can buy a tiny piece of a company. That's a stock. And if the company grows, your piece grows with it. You can lend money to governments or corporations. That's a bond. You can buy hundreds of investments at once through an index fund. Or you can buy property and rent it out. Different tools, same goal, making your money produce more money. And the biggest mistake? People wait years for the perfect moment. Next month. Next year. After the crash. But history is clear. Time in the market beats timing the market. Nobody predicts the future consistently, not economists, not billionaires. Patience beats prediction. But investing raises one last question. Why is a diamond worth a fortune while an identical-sized rock is worth nothing? The answer isn't price. It's value. And value isn't built into objects, it's assigned by people. Scarcity, usefulness, emotion. The people who earn the most usually create the most value for the most people. Money follows value, never the other way around. And finally, we arrive at something worth more than money itself. Something every billionaire, every student, every parent, every person on earth receives in exactly the same amount each day. Time. If you lose money, you can earn it back. Lose your phone, buy another. Lose your job, find a new one. But there's one thing you'll never get back. Time. Every single day, 86,400 seconds are deposited into your account. And every night, whatever you didn't use disappears forever. No rollover. No refunds. The wealthiest people alive can't buy a single extra second. That's what makes time the most valuable asset you'll ever own. Money can multiply. Time can't. And here's the beautiful part. When you invest wisely, you're not just growing your money. You're buying back your future time. The goal was never just to own expensive things. The goal is freedom. Freedom to choose how you spend your days. Because in the end, money is just a tool. Time is the real treasure. If you made it all the way here, thank you for spending your time with us. Hopefully, you now understand money just a little better than you did 20 minutes ago. If you learned something new, leave a like. It genuinely helps the channel grow. And if you want more videos that turn complicated ideas into simple, entertaining stories, subscribe to Compound Club and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching. And we'll see you in the next video.